Hello and welcome to FinTech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today on the show, we have Lacey Shrum, founder of SmartKX. SmartKX is a revenue management tool that helps advisors, and specifically RIAs, manage their billing cycles and actually solve for the really, really shoddy way that many advisors do bill and do something far more accurate, professional, and scalable. And with that, here's my interview with Lacey. Lacey, thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Tell us about SmartKX.
Yeah, so SmartKX is a app to help advisors revolutionize their revenue systems from the calculation, documentation, and then analysis.
All right, so we're going to dive into why that is and why something so simple as getting paid can actually be very complicated or less than optimal. So before we get started, let's talk about the origin of the company. Why did you start it? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so I'm an attorney. I started in this space, first role out of undergrad, went to law school, and really just saw that firms struggled with their A calculation, the compliance of it. When you got into the actual analysis and understanding the numbers and like the business pieces of it, those weren't readily available. And worked at an RIA, went to law school, moved up into more legal and compliance. Of course, fees are a huge compliance issue, and then also practiced law and got the tech bug of learning how to solve problems with technology, which was really exciting, especially as a lawyer. And this was a really big problem out there for multiple reasons. And so we built SmartKX.
Okay, I'm going to have to insert the joke here that if there's one thing a lawyer knows about, it's billing.
That's right.
All right.
I'll take it.
Okay, so let's talk about this sleepy corner of the industry. Okay, billing, straightforward, basic function of the industry. You got to get paid. So, talk to me about what the status quo is for most advisors and why that is flawed.
Yeah, something that you said at the intro was like, this is the easiest part. It should be the easiest part. And I think I would challenge that assumption that if you're in business, any type of business, getting paid is usually one of the hardest parts. Actually, getting a client, a user, someone to buy your product, if there's a contract, and then actually getting exchanged the compensation in exchange for the value you're giving. It's really difficult. I would also say that for an RIA, in comparison to the rest of the world, it is very easy to get paid. It's relatively low friction. There's one document that the client needs to check off a box, or usually the advisor checks it off, the client signs it to give them access to collect payment out of the client's account. Just so easy. I know so many founders of other businesses who would just be gaga over this way to get paid. Just say how much the client owes you, pull it from their account, never hear say a word again. Unfortunately, what has happened over time is that this idea of, okay, we're going to have this tiered billing system, it's a flat rate. It's 1% on all assets, it's 1% first million. Like all these things are very common. They got added on throughout history as another report. So we have great portfolio management tools that are doing really complex performance calculations, rebalancing, some CRM, and oh, we'll just run a report for billing. It's, I'm using quotes, so simple. And that's great if advisors are sticking to this very simple model. But what's happened over time is advisors have come up with very complex or nuanced fee calculations
You're
for
being
their
kind.
clients.
You like to complicate matters sometimes, but continue.
So there's a lot of discounting. There's a lot of clever ways that they have tried to run this billing. There's also industry standards that have not been modernized, like billing quarterly in advance based on the last business day of the quarter, presents a whole host of problems. Advisors work against that when we get market movement, we get cash flows. And then there's really the compliance aspect of it. Of course, you've got to keep the fee in your calculator and the fee in your contract in sync. And then just the analysis of what are your numbers for your business? What's your average client spend? Which clients are profitable, which aren't? What are your firm numbers? All those are really disjointed if advisors are doing them at all. And so that's really what I found the state, and I continue to find the state of our industry in, is you ask an advisor, What are your numbers? What is your average blended rate? Those numbers are not known. Okay, if you have a problem, how do you fix it? What does your compliance protocol look like for getting new clients onboarded that they're built correctly? And then how do you accommodate for cash flows? If you're billing in that antiquated method, you're leaving money on the table. The market's going up over time. You're reliant on 4 business days per year. Both of those things are things that advisors turn to clients that we don't do. We don't time the market. The market goes up over time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So overall, yeah, it sounds simple enough, right? Oh, I'm just going to bill my pro rata amount in a month and a quarter, whatever the heck it is, and basically that's going to reflect what I'm paid. But as we said, market values up and down. It's a market timing issue. Beyond that, let's talk about it from a simple business management standpoint, because you mentioned we'll come back to this, billing in advance, okay? So from a business management standpoint, if you are billing quarterly in arrears, the reality as a business owner, you are floating working capital for 3 months. That is a massive investment in your business that scales dollar for dollar with every new client. When you think about it, there is a hidden cost of investment in the business when you're not thinking about this the right way. Right now, for
And a risk of accounts receivable. Because if a client leaves
yeah,
mid-quarter, you're not getting paid. They're not going to send you a check.
yeah, exactly. Right.
They're not going to send you a
Canada,
check.
things are a little bit different. We can hold back or get our last fee before we get our last fee before it transfers out. But you're absolutely right. There is absolutely risk there. All right. So, I mean, you mentioned a couple of things. Like, I think I really break it down for what you were talking about. And you talked about first and foremost the mechanics of it, which is one aspect of it, which is not to be, as we just explained, there's dynamics to this, right? And the other is the intelligence aspects of this. And then I guess the last piece is the policing of it, whether it be compliance or just upkeep and everything else. So let's talk about first and foremost, we're going to start with the mechanics. So we addressed some of the mechanic oversights. Let's go a little bit deeper on that. So we talked about like quarterly. I remember years ago, I think it was Bill Winterberg. It was a big market correction on the last day of the month of the last day of the quarter. And he basically tweeted out about, oh boy, all those people who bill quarterly just took a 10%, what is it, like a 5% hit on comp. And I was like sitting there going, oh yeah, some people do it that way, don't they? So let's talk about, so that's an obvious limitation, right? If it's a snapshot in time in a single day, it's a market timing. Let's talk about what the way to do it should a little bit more methodically can and should look like, and what some of the variables are there, like weekends and holidays.
Yeah, and I agree with that tweet because I have posted trying to be a little tongue in cheek that I'm always like prayers up for the end of the quarter as we don't get any huge market events. We had one last quarter in April where the tariffs hit 2 days after the quarter end. And had that been a week difference, advisors' comp would have been much different then. But you also have to look at if you are billing like billing quarterly in advance is also lovely because you get paid a quarter of your revenue in advance. So by April 1st, you've collected half of your year's revenue by the first 95 days of the year, which is really nice to have working capital, especially when you're starting a business. And then, of course, if you're used to that, you can't really go back to doing arrears because you'd had to wait for a quarter for revenue to come in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the one business day that seems to cause a lot of disruption down the line, whether it's the market movement, cash flows. I've even heard advisors tell me that multiple clients will game the system, move money out before the end of the quarter, get billed, move money back in. Advisors want to
That's a
calculate
client problem, not a billing problem.
advice, they move money in or out, they want to charge or reduce their fee. How do you combine a tiered billing schedule with prorating throughout the quarter?
Yeah.
I've tried to build it, I've tried to understand it, and I've tried to explain it. And then you get into discounting, you get into a lot of transparency issues. And really, if you have a big shop, your advisors wanting to know what their payout is, it gets really difficult when you're trying to do all these mid-quarter calculations. So there's lots of ways you can do average daily balance and arrears. We're just releasing publicly a really nice feature that keeps quarterly in advance based on last quarter's value. And then we go back and we do an average daily balance reconcile. And it's been really great. It solved a lot of problems that the quarterly in advance sort of leaves for everyone to deal with.
Yeah, but you have to solve a problem where to get there. And that problem was you're creating more work previously, right? If you didn't have a proper tool for it, the entire billing in advance and then simultaneously having to have a reconciliation mechanism for going back and saying, okay, I billed this on the assumption the average value was going to be Y. and it ended up being X. Now I owe the difference of Z. That now has to come off the next billing in advance or whatever it might be. It was a solution that existed as a possibility, but without the right tools, it was just so much more work.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be without technology, that would be impossible to be doing two calculations every quarter and then reconciling the two.
It's
But
possible you wouldn't be able to do anything else.
that is true.
All right. So bottom line is now your tool allows people to set their methodology, like in arrears, in advance, whatever periods they want to calculate it over, and then know that the system is going to, if there's something to contemplate in terms of if you did it early and there's got to be an adjustment, that's also factored in essentially. So relieving a lot of headaches and pain in that regard.
Exactly. And our goal has always been to automate the reason that you're using a spreadsheet in billing in a reasonable fashion, right? There are some crazy ideas I've been pitched about a spreadsheet where I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. But understand why an advisor is doing a certain thing in a spreadsheet, or I get a spreadsheet out of my system now and then I'm doing X, Y, and Z. We're product focused. We take that X, Y, and Z and say, is this reasonable? Is it something that belongs with what we're doing in a way to automate their fee billing? And we're the only one in the space that's putting 100% of our efforts into a fee calculation.
Good. Good. All right, that's the AUM fee calculation piece. So we talked about the fee calculator challenges, and like in actuality, when we explain what we're trying to do, there's only so many ways you get a bill for it. Fine. There's a few different mechanisms, and then there's of course the issues. Let's talk about the intelligence piece of this, right? What basically, besides telling me what I'm getting paid and who I'm getting paid by, like what additional pieces of information are you providing people that are proving to be strategically important?
Yeah, and I do want to step quickly back when you said like the billing methods are pretty cut and dry. That method that I just explained to you with the quarterly in advance with the average daily balance reconcile, that is something that we've completely developed in-house and is a
Yeah.
new feature for RIAs.
The implementation is not cut and dry.
We've done a great job at implementing it and helping compliance advisors, the business team get around it.
I throw a lot of
But
asterisks up. My asterisk, what I meant by that was the work that is necessary for a system to do in
yeah,
order to implement it is difficult. You may have a great
yeah,
implementation, absolutely, but to do it without you is the problem.
yes, of
Yes,
course. That's what makes a tech company.
exactly. I've got to be very careful with a lawyer on the other end when I'm talking on this podcast. All right, so be very much more careful with the actual wording of every sentence. All right, so let's go back to the intelligence piece.
Yeah, the numbers. Yeah. So the things that, and this comes from firsthand experience in building my own SaaS company. What numbers are we looking at? So things that we found are important to advisors are obviously A. That is the most important one. You hear everyone. I personally think A is a little bit of a vanity metric. It sounds great, but like that doesn't really tell me a lot about your business. If I were an acquirer, an investor, an owner, like I would want to know what is the revenue? What is your revenue per client? What is your average blended rate? This is something that we found advisors were overestimating a bit, saying you're on a tiered fee schedule. What do you expect your blended average blended rate to be? Oh, 80 to 85 bips. And in reality, we find it's well into the low 70s. Another one that's big for us is how many assets are on no bill. So, how many are you legally? What are the assets that you
Mm,
are legally responsible for that
mm.
are coming through on your master that you, for whatever reason, are not billing on? So, there's a lot of really good numbers we can get from doing the A fee calculations. And we can show you that on your firm level and then on individual clients. Are they average blended rate is probably the biggest comparison feature. Are they inside or outside of your expected bandwidth? And then, which we're going to turn the conversation to on the documentation, if you want to adjust those fee schedules, we can hit amend and send the necessary docs and calculate the fee. But advisors have been really surprised at being able to see those numbers and really compare and contrast and see which clients are profitable and which ones they may need to adjust either the pricing on or the time spent.
That's interesting too, because we address an issue that comes up, which is the discounting, right? The treating everything as a negotiation. And I was saying that I would say that Jurisdictions around the world, including mine, have looked at that as being wrong. There is currently pressure in my country that it's coming down the pipe at some point. There will be standardization of fee schedules. If you're going to have different pricing, you better have different services. End of story.
Just the confidence, like you having data behind you and saying like, Jason, your fee schedule is 20 bips under my average. Like I have to increase your fee. Having that data
Yep.
behind you just makes you feel so, the Kitsy's report says it's the confidence. Like why is pricing under? Because, and the number one reason is confidence, advisors' confidence in
Oh,
communicating that.
100%. I think it, and but yeah, confidence, or it's this never-ending pursuit of how do I justify my fees, as opposed to the other way around, is who do I provide value to in a deep way, and then therefore the fees will speak for themselves. That's a different argument altogether. In general, I think when you start undercutting yourself in any way, shape, or form, you are just setting yourself, first off, like you're not cutting a fair deal to anyone, right? Two people should be paying the same price for roughly the same service, but more so, you've added a level of complexity to your business. And I've heard this before with firms where basically the advisors pretty much negotiate almost every fee individually. No clue
Mhm.
what it was paying. And there's some people basically who are getting away from the business for almost free, and the other ones are drastically overpaying compared to someone else. How is that fair? Fair from a standpoint, but also what have you done to think about how hard it is to then monetize that business if you're ever going to sell it? Who wants to deal with that?
Yeah. And we found in my own business and with our users that the data, when you have those raw numbers and that raw data, like it's so impactful on giving you the confidence to have the conversations.
Yep, agreed. So basically, better informing the individual decision, giving larger overview of the entire billable cycle about what they're making in general, and just better informing them. Great. And I think, frankly, that the core of every smart business decision is data, right? So without that proper data, you can't make proper intelligent business decisions. So you're providing that. Fantastic. Let's talk about the ongoing compliance and monitoring piece. How are you helping to basically, first off, what falls in that category in your mind? Because you mentioned some examples earlier. Let's elaborate on that. Let's talk about how you enable that.
Yeah, so we think about it, and this is really where we started the agreement between the client and the firm. So it's going to say a lot of things, but the biggest thing it's going to say is that, client, I am managing these accounts for you, and you will pay me these amounts. And this is the way that you will pay me. Usually the ADV is more on how, like what values we're going to take, how we're going to calculate them. But the agreement is really important because whatever the fee schedule is going to be written in there. And so
Mhm.
having that be connected to the actual calculator, I'll use one of the hottest buzzwords in our industry is integrations. Like where is
Oh
data
boy.
talking talking to each other? And I argue that if your data is doing something and it's reliant on something else, those two things should be integrated. So your client contract is driving your calculator, those two things should be integrated, which is what we do. So we can finalize the client agreement, put in the accounts, the how it's going to be charged, send that, finalize it, send it for signature, have it come back, and then the data does not need to move anywhere else to be calculated.
The integration game is always difficult. Talk to me about how you've been pulling it off, how well it's been going.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier when you're controlling both sides of the integration.
That's fair.
I will say that. It's been great. I'm a lawyer, so I'm able to like understand the agreements a bit more, right? Like how to move within those and like where to put the fee schedule, things like that. So that's been really helpful. But yeah, we have it mapped out and we have the calculations. We've set a standard in our industry. Again, nobody's really doing this. So we had the task of how do we want the fee schedules to look? Like, how should they look from a standardized approach that's
Mm,
best for everyone and being transparent? And so having that capability, how it's going to look in the schedule itself and in the contract. When you enter it in once on our app, it goes into the contract and it goes into the calculator. And that helps with a lot of things, onboarding, it helps with compliance. CCOs love it, but it also helps on that business piece where when you're looking at the analytics and you say, Jason's underpaying, I call him, I say, I got to send you a new agreement. I can click, send you the new agreement. You sign it. It's already updated. We found advisors were going back to their ops team. We got to get this new agreement. You got to fill in the fees on this, and this is what we have to do. And that was just taking time and resources and creating risk that it wasn't done correctly.
yep. Well, bottom line is you're giving them a methodology that will not only help them be compliant, but also, yeah, compliant, transparent, easy to understand for the client, standardized, so basically two people can compare, but also deploy at scale, which is not a small thing.
Thanks.
And bottom line is what you're doing is you're dealing with one of the core functions of the business is again, how do we get paid for what it is we do? How do we deal with the complexity of that? How do we deliver that effectively? How do we basically monitor that, garner intelligence properly to basically make strategic business decisions based off that? And how do we monitor and modify going forward? So that's what you've done to date. Like, where do you see it going? What are you working on these days?
So we're working on some really cool, of course, I would be missing the opportunity if I didn't say AI, but we're adding in some really cool without those dashboard metrics, like just getting deeper into being able to give recommendations like, hey, these are the people that are underpaying. If you increase your revenue by X%, this would be the outcome. And giving some really cool toggles to start even more understanding not only your revenue, but the ways that those can be adjusted so that you're really looking at a business. It's not just a practice, not, oh, we just got to get more assets in. You're looking at the organic growth of like, how can I increase revenue, give more value, and grow my business? So that's really cool. Some of that involves probably going to the CRMs and start getting some time spent versus fees, and what that looks like to see the profitability. Of course, we're working on that new billing feature, which has been awesome. We're getting that deployed in some really large and key firms. We found that that increases revenue 1.84% on average annually. That's really cool too. So we've
Very
got like
cool.
some good things in the pipeline. We've got an awesome foundation. I'm really proud of us for building a key foundation, and now we're at a place where we can really scale the things that advisors want. All of our product is built on advisor feedback. So that's how we build our roadmap. And now is when we start to do the really innovative things.
Excellent. You use the magic words, so I'm expecting a lot from you now. We'll see. All right. Everybody likes to use the word AI. It's driving me nuts. I will go on a rant. At least you're not. I've read a lot of AI company websites recently, and most of them can't even tell me what they do other than use artificial intelligence for some ethereal
Mhm.
repurpose. So everybody get better at that.
Yeah, a blockchain company. It's like the new blockchain.
The hype cycle. I can't wait for the reality to. Anyway, so that said, changing the world through faster conduits and whatever the hell it was on they said on Silicon Valley. If I remember, it was the Silicon Valley the demo drop. Couldn't stop laughing because that is too close to reality.
That show is like very on point.
I unfortunately feel like I live it too often. Anyway, so the to end on a positive note, we're gonna end with the three questions I ask everybody. The first question I ask you is if you had one wish or something to change in your company or the industry as a whole, what would it be?
I think our industry, one of the things that we're really struggling with is operating your firm as a business versus a practice. This has been a really lovely market season from '09 until now that the market has gone consistently up. It's been very, for most quarters, been very nice to be in the market and be able to get paid, and it's felt very good. And I see so many advisors coming from the law firm space, like running their firm as a practice versus a business. So looking at their ROIs, looking at numbers that they can set their growth targets or their goals, or like what is their goal for their business. And I wish that advisors would start taking that more seriously, because I see on the other end of the spectrum the big firms obviously taking that very seriously. The PE money coming in, like PE is not coming in because we're running a super efficient business
No.
here. Like they see some amazing opportunities to make a lot of money. And I think the advisor should take that as encouragement and optimism that there is a lot of work I can do here still to make more money and to build my business before I sell or before the PE money comes in, because there's just so much. We've talked about who's underpaying your assets that are no bill. I can increase your revenue by only almost 2% per year. Like all these things where you can increase that revenue and keep giving good value before you take any money. And so I think looking at the VC side and looking at other industries, that would be something that would be so impactful for advisors
Is to adult
over
their
the next.
practices. I agree with you. The PE money side, the numbers prove themselves. The valuations people are getting for the PE industry comes in and looks at businesses that have retention rates in excess of 95, not closer to 99%, that basically pay equivalent to an annuity. Yes, that has variability, but largely the variability is predictable based off of the average the average allocation of the book in itself, and has not necessarily digitized or streamlined or professionalized its practices to a degree that could be. Like those are the kinds of businesses that PE firms line up for. And then you couple that with
Mhm.
the fact that most businesses have gotten there largely through non-organic growth methods. Referrals are the only organic growth method, but no actual organic marketing spend. The customer acquisition cost on this is irrelevant compared to the lifetime value if we actually spend
Mhm.
some real marketing dollars. And then you see what those get bought for, and then you see what the likes of the proven growth generators like Creative and whoever else who got sold to private equity, the multiple on top of that they got because they proved they unlocked organic. Oh my God. Yes, there is. This
Mhm.
is a incredibly lucrative and valuable business. And the problem is, I think it's been good enough for a lot, but
Yeah.
multiple can get a lot higher if you actually make the thing an enterprise.
And I think the timeline for feeling good is, I don't know how long that's going to last.
Yep, you got that right. That's right. Because frankly, everything professionalizes and scales as every business. The last in the last 20 years was the industry adulting itself. And now we
Mhm.
have mega RIAs, they're just getting to be bigger and bigger. And lots of opportunity for solos, but solos just it's not as easy as it used to be. You can't just hang a shingle and expect business.
Yeah.
Okay, second
Well,
question.
that's capitalism, baby.
That's it. That's it. Competition breeds more fierce competition. Second question. What has been the biggest challenge in the company where it is today?
So when we started out, because we are totally focused on the revenue space for RIAs, the hardest part really has been the education and getting the knowledge out there of this is why this thing is important to shine a light on and to adjust over time. Revenue is, like you said, a sleepy thing in the market that everyone's like, it's there, it's easy right now. It's, yes, this process isn't like 100%, but I can deal and I do it once a quarter.
You
And
mean
so
you got
really
the good enough problem?
yeah, the education of like why it is important to know these metrics, why it is important that the compliance side is buttoned up, and like that full loop of revenue, we've done a lot of education on, and we are still continuing to do it, which is great because I do know it's made us have a better product and we understand our user a lot better now. And so that's been the hardest part.
Let me speak and contextualize this. Do you have any metrics that you collected yet on how much you've managed to move the needle on revenue, ceteris paribus, no new clients, it was just the existing book?
Oh yeah.
What's that number look like as a percentage roughly?
Like this, so for that innovative, for the new billing feature, it's 1.84 a year
So there we go.
increased
So
revenue. Right.
basically, the equivalent for most advisors of adding at least one new household of revenue without adding the cost. When you look at what that
Yeah.
would add in terms of profitability, solo practitioners, let's call them with high E-box north of 50%, you're talking
Bottom.
about for
Right.
larger enterprises, you're talking about 4 to 5. Fix your process, and you will add between the equivalent of 2 to 5 households in profit. I don't know
People.
how much more of a message you need to make. I don't leave
I know.
large piles of money lying on the ground randomly, but that's just me. Yeah.
I agree.
So,
So for every $1 billion, it's light math, $103,000 annually. That's a couple households.
yeah, no kidding. So, last question. What is it that you're working on that keeps you excited and keeps you getting out of the bed in the morning to keep on fighting a good fight?
I have there's lots of things I love about my job. Like I love solving problems, I love building stuff, I love getting something off the ground that someone's like, "Yes, I need this." As I did research for this podcast, I was like, "Okay, all those things are normal." I would expect that as an entrepreneur. I will say there is just some people say it's like down in your belly or some reason why you just keep when the days are the worst days and you're like, "I gotta give up. Like I gotta end this. This is enough. Like I've had enough. I don't want to be beat up anymore." And those days come around every so often. It's just, I don't know. I just get up in the morning. It's like, okay, let's go another round. It's like, let's just keep doing this thing and keep moving it. And I don't know what that's attributable to, but I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for it every single day, even on the bad ones, that you just kind of like getting punched in the face. Like, you just keep showing up. And I just have such a deep rooted belief in this that I'm going to keep doing it.
I make the joke on this podcast, it's the single most bipolar thing you will ever opt yourself into is basically being an entrepreneur. And yes, we all know that pain, and it is the frustration of pushing a ball up a hill that always wants to roll over you. But it is what it is, and it has its moments, and it's definitely rewarding if it over time. But anyway,
And if
so
it's what you want to spend your time doing, taking a bet on yourself is such a privilege to be able to do it. And that's what I just love. I get to bet on myself every single day. That's amazing.
fantastic. Lacey, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. It's good to see
Yeah,
you. Thanks for having me.
my pleasure. So it's Lacey Shrum, and if you are an RIA looking to improve your billing cycle, please take a look at SmartKX because frankly, as we said, I had a couple households for no additional cost. Like, just don't leave it lying on the table. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, the rest of your podcasts. And until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at jasonpereira.ca.